Welcome back to PopCon, everybody. A salute to all pop culture, but mostly the 80s. I'm your Generation 1 host, Victor, and I was there. But I'm taking you back. For those of you who remember those very special episodes, popular and common in the 70s and 80s, they were usually the stuff of our favorite sitcoms. But it doesn't mean they were off limits to their animated cousins of the era. There just wasn't the same marketing or hoopla like they had for the live-action counterparts. But believe me, there was plenty of serious and high-stakes episodes from G.I. Joe to Gem. So come with me as I explore 8 times 80s cartoons got real. Let's go! Number 8, Manslaughter, Masters of the Universe. Usually, Manslaughter and He-Man don't go together, but there was that one time. Writers wanted to deviate from the norm and allow us to see not only a different emotional side of our hero, but some unique imagery opportunities rarely seen in the recycled animation style of the show. Thinking he's accidentally killed a man, He-Man can't bear the collateral damage and returns his power to Castle Grayskull, including one of only 2 times He-Man becomes Prince Adam on screen. The sorceress isn't the only one forlorn.
Let the power return!
The viewer got a rare glimpse of a melancholy He-Man when he throws his sword into the abyss. Although it is revealed the death was staged by Skeletor, we already experienced the meaning of great power comes with great responsibility, before it was an overused pop culture reference. This episode is rare for its once-in-a-series subject matter, and includes a little tender moment with He-Man and Teela, hinting at a situation we kids made up for them in our own imagination, but never developed by the showrunner. Number 7, Genocide, the Thundercats. In an origin story, rare for cartoons of the 80s, the Thundercats got a pilot, where we see the fleeing survivors of a doomed planet. While a number of crafts escape into space with the last of the Thundercats race, the vicious mutants of Plundar attack. Revealed as far more cunning and ruthless than they would be depicted in the series, the mutants decide to pick off each ship to get to their prize. Without much warning, we watch as the villains not only begin to obliterate the ships, but laugh with pleasure at the extermination of the Thundercats. The lack of visual confirmation of characters dying on screen puts us at number 7, but that doesn't change the obvious context. The viewer knows there are other living beings on the ships, and we are given no evidence of survivors as we watch the total destruction of everyone but the Lord of the Thundercats and his team. Besides the obvious deaths of an entire population, the scene ends with the death of the Thundercat leader and mentor, Jaga, dying of old age as he pilots the craft, while the rest of the crew is oblivious in hypersleep. Now that trip must have lasted 9 lives. Number 6, Mind Control Substance Experimentation, G.I. Joe. Sure, it was a military action cartoon with the expected violence that parents fought hard against subjecting their kids to. But bullets were changed to lasers, blue for the Joes, red for Cobra, and no one ever died. Ask any 80s kids, and they'll tell you it wasn't violence, but appropriate action, and anyone shot down was seen parachuting safely from their flaming plane. G.I. Joe had many multi-part episodes and some adult themes with dysfunctional relationships that set it apart, but this episode was more like The Manchurian Candidate, where villain Cobra abducts a presumed dead shipwreck and experiments on him with mind-altering drugs that cause him to start believing in an altered reality, complete with an old flame as his wife that he recognizes, but a 6-year-old daughter he doesn't. Desperate to keep him under control with experimental warfare to get secrets from him, he begins to believe until the plot unravels and his wife and child hold him at gunpoint, and as his Joe comrades attack to foil the plot, the synthetic humanoids give Shipwreck one more mind-F before his surprised friends find him alive and his home goes up in flames. If that isn't PTSD triggering, I don't know what is. Number 5, Nazis, Mask. Today, the mere utterance of Nazis would cause all kinds of outrage, especially on a kid's show.
Bingo! The map showing the Nazi goal.
However, in the 80s, Mask made it real with not 1 but 2 episodes where the catalyst was Nazi-related history.
I've heard stories about Nazi raiders bringing stolen gold to South America for safekeeping. But I didn't think they were true.
You hear that, T-Bob? Nazi gold.
That's nuts!
Hold on.
Mask was a cross between G.I. Joe and Transformers. To find its place, the accompanying cartoon to the toy line found its voice in adventures around the world. Geographical locations, authentic history, and documented myths and legends were the stuff of these stories. International intrigue and real-life historical figures and moments made the fantastic vehicles and masks more real for a generation of viewers. Venom, the villains, were not world-dominating terrorists like Cobra, but often petty thieves working in extortion, treasure hunting, and selling secrets to the highest bidder. The formula had billionaire Matt Tracker asked to help in a strange circumstance that always led to Venom's involvement. Less violent and more imaginative with the vehicle and mask powers, creating most of the action. On 2 occasions, Nazis were casual and unapologetically referenced as the key story drivers. Once with Nazi-stolen treasures hidden in South America, and a second time, undetonated bombs and a trigger device laid by none other than Adolf Hitler.
Take a look.
During World War II, the French resistance hid those paintings so that Hitler would not take them. During the German occupation of Paris, Hitler planted a network of bombs under the city in the sewers. He planned to blow up Paris if the Allies should try to march in. The bombs were to be triggered from a distance by this device, a shortwave radio trigger hidden in a sealed bunker. A member of the resistance learned of the locations of the bombs and wrote them down on the backs of the hidden paintings.
The device was never found, and after the war, the whole thing was forgotten. And that's what Venom's looking for. That's right. And if they find it first, they'll have the city of Paris in the palm of their dirty hands.
These historical moments helped open the mind of us kids into actual history, and that theme song still rocks our imagination. Number 4, Hallucinogens, Gem. We're at number 4 and our first true drug-related episode. Drugs were a growing epidemic in the excess of the 80s, and this cartoon had a captive audience and dedicated fan base. Gem was often a cliffhanger, with adventures that would catch both girls and boys, with stories of action, romance, and of course, music. So when they went darker with the episode Alone Again, it took things in a rare direction in the depiction of mind-altering drugs. We're not talking Mary Jane here, but pills from a high school pusher, which was very prevalent in the time in both real life and in anti-drug propaganda. Although cramped in a 22-minute cartoon, the often rushed story hits all the beats. The promises of better performance, the first one's free, dependence, denial, anger, and more. Not your usual holograms episode. Kudos to the creators for not ending the episode with the character Laura simply getting over it, but continuing in group therapy to deal with her own demons, anxiety, and self-esteem issues, as well as her addiction to the pills. The depiction is dramatic and over the top, but that's to be expected for a very special episode of the 80s. 2 songs come from this episode. Alone Again, which is sung by the character Laura herself,
alone again with my guitar, alone again underneath the lonely stars. I see some friendly faces, they smile at me, and then, just like every other time, I'm alone again.
and another song from a previous episode accurately titled Nightmare.
Everything's going in circles, everyone's so intense. All of it seems so mysterious, and none of it makes any sense. This must be a nightmare.
I think this is pretty fun. Well, except for that last song that was kind of a downer. But actually, I'm having a great time, and isn't that all that matters? Actually, I do want to hear what you think of my choices. Do you remember these episodes? Did you see them? Are there any other episodes from shows that you remember that should have made my list? I want to know. Let me know in the comments. And I know you like this, so why don't you show me some love? You see that subscribe button down there? I've hit that. So, you gonna help me out? Help grow my channel, see something different, hit that subscribe, and throw me a like too. Now, on with the list. Number 3, Crack, Bravestar.
There! That's it!
If Gem wasn't hard enough, Marshall Bravestar upped the ante with an episode of not just the effects of drugs, but an actual OD. Bravestar came late to the game and is often underrated for imaginative visuals and storytelling, as well as the Native American lead character. The drug problem had grown in the US. Cocaine and its cousin crack was on the rise, and this episode does not pussyfoot around the topic. As it tries to race to help a young man with his addiction to spin, sci-fi's take on crack, Bravestar takes care of the dealer. But it's too late as we witness a real cartoon death. A death that is forever. While a best friend wishes he could have done something, a mother, in some truly realistic reaction, is in utter despair for her son. The episode ends with not only a dedication to an individual probably only known to the showrunners, but a familiar image of a tear-eyed Native American, before transitioning to Bravestar lying a wreath on the child's grave.
People end up
Real
like this.
indeed.
Drugs are dangerous. Drugs can kill. Don't mess with them.
Number 3, gang violence, Fat Albert. This could be ripped from modern headlines, but the imagery is conveyed in all of its 70s glory. Fat Albert may not be from the 80s, but no decade truly starts on January 1st, but has some bleed over from the prior and the post-decade. I won't talk about Fat Albert's name as we all respected the character, and I won't mention anything about the show's creator and star, Bill Cosby. The cartoon taught us a lot, and these inner city kids went through what most kids did and still do today. In one of the most real episodes, a character's brother is shot and killed in the crossfire of a gang war he wasn't even involved in. The ensuing reactions, emotions, police engagement, and aftermath were on par with its live-action counterparts at the time. Like All in the Family, Maude, and the Jeffersons, Fat Albert allowed political situations and social commentary, and dared to go where only primetime had gone before. And they took real life to Saturday mornings. Sadly, we get far too less of these messages so blatant in our kids' programming of today.
That's why we're naming this the Fernando Garcia Park. Okay, Rudy.
Okay, with only one more to go, here's a couple of honorable mentions for you. There were many important topics in these end-of-episode PSAs and morals from the 80s. From hiding in refrigerators to taking your dad's prescription. As this was a PSA, a short interaction, and not a catalyst for an entire episode, Mask stands apart for getting real.
Worse, a child molester.
Hey, Jeff! How about walking to the game with us?
Perhaps short, but it could be the only time I heard child molester in a cartoon. And believe me, it made you think. The Inhumanoids were normalizing a new kind of violence growing on the big screen, frightening or graphic gore. With the rise of fantasies and D&D, everyone jumped on the bandwagon. On the big screen or the small, from Disney's 1985 PG animated film The Black Cauldron to Saturday morning's Inhumanoids, it was far less about shooting and fighting and more about vile graphic images we were not accustomed to. To raise it up a notch, Inhumanoids even added devouring the human or two. Number 1, Death of a Father. The Transformers. Did you know it was coming? This had to be number 1, and you know it. Although the death of Optimus Prime is in the theatrical release of the animated movie, he is still born and bred from his original 80s cartoon of the same name, and this storyline would continue every day after school. For those who may not be in the know or uninitiated, Optimus Prime was not just a robot, he was our father. For all of his wisdom, self-sacrifice, hard decisions, and that perfect voice by Peter Cullen, we long to see where Optimus Prime would take us, and just what knowledge he would impart during our adventures.
Prime, you can't die!
You can imagine the aftermath of witnessing Optimus Prime's death in the film. It is something long discussed and affected me in the theater like so many other kids. If you didn't share a tear for the passing of our collective dad, you were a monster. There was no internet to give things away. We were shocked with everyone else and left the theater with our little broken hearts. We would have to wait and see what was going to happen that fall when the next season debuted without our fearless leader. Scarring countless young people, a parent letter writing campaign caused Hasbro to bring Optimus Prime back to life in the G1 series. However, just like Pet Sematary, they never come back the same, and Optimus Prime was never the same again. Do you remember any of these episodes? Do you agree with my list? Let me know in the comments. This was some serious shit at a time where cartoons were simply a ploy to get kids to pester their parents for the newest action figure. Truth was, We looked up to these heroes, and these were very impactful episodes, if not very rare. They were startling and real, and mimicked the very special episodes that we found in our live-action shows like Different Strokes and Give Me a Break. It may not have been all in the family style of writing, but like that show with its realistic portrayal of humanity, we will never see the likes of this storytelling again. Not in our sitcoms, and especially not in our kids' cartoons. Which, when you think about it, seems like a real shame. I really hope you liked the show. Thank you for being here. If you'd like more of this kind of content, but in a completely different way, then check out Collection 82, our sister site for graphic design and illustration of these very same IPs and more. I'll provide a link in the bio, and help me put my thing on your thing. Remember to subscribe, and until next time.